Hello, Natalia Sopit is here in the studio for you. You're watching Our Time, and I'll tell you the main news at this hour right now. 2 people were killed and 3 more were injured as a result of an attack by the Russian Federation on the Odesa region. One of the injured was hospitalized in serious condition. The Russians struck the truck parking lot, according to the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. A fire broke out there. Rescuers quickly put it out. The process of identifying the victims is still ongoing. The Russian army struck Zaporizhzhia. A residential area came under fire. 3 people were injured. A 2-story house was partially destroyed. More than 30 others were damaged. A power line was cut. Several thousand subscribers were left without electricity. According to preliminary reports, the Russians attacked the city with multiple rocket launchers.
We were lucky. We were lucky. We have cracks in the house, the roofing sheets on the roof lifted up, and the doors were almost blown off their hinges. Our neighbors suffered more. Their windows were blown out, their car was damaged, and their gate got jammed. At night, we helped people get out of the yard because no one knew what would happen next.
The Russian Federation attacked the Chernihiv region with drones. A 47-year-old man was injured, and his house burned down, according to the National Police of Ukraine. Homes of local residents in the region were also damaged. For the second time in the past 2 days, Russian shaheeds attacked Novorossiysk. 4 residential houses, outbuildings, and cars were damaged. Police are documenting the aftermath of the attacks and collecting evidence of the occupiers' war crimes. 2 children, aged 11 and 14, died as a result of a Russian attack in the Samarskyi district of the Dnipropetrovsk region. The number of victims has risen to 4, according to the regional military administration. The day before, Russia carried out artillery strikes and launched FPV drones. The shelling continued throughout the night. Also, in the Chernihiv district, a fire broke out as a result of a drone strike. 5 private homes in the Vasilkivska community were damaged, and infrastructure was destroyed. According to air defense forces, 7 drones were shot down in the region overnight. Due to infrastructure damage and the security situation in the Dnipropetrovsk and Donetsk regions, the schedule of suburban trains has been changed. This was reported by Ukrzaliznytsia. In the Dnipropetrovsk region, the changes affected the routes of 4 trains. In the Donetsk region, 2 trains were affected, and 2 more routes were cancelled. 1,500 attack drones, more than 70 missiles, and over 1,000 guided aerial bombs. This is the number of aerial targets the aggressor launched at Ukraine in a week, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy reported. Just in the past 24 hours, 5 regions have been affected, with casualties and injuries reported. The president expressed his condolences to the families of the victims of the attacks.
It's clear that Moscow primarily wants to harm our people. That's why we are actively working to ensure reliable support for our energy sector this winter. We have already reached concrete agreements with our partners. The United States, Norway, Germany, the Netherlands, Canada, the United Kingdom, Italy, Japan, Lithuania, Denmark, Sweden, Estonia, Spain, and the European Commission are already helping us with contributions to the Energy Support Fund or by providing the necessary equipment. Thank you to everyone who stands with Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Russia is deliberately targeting critical infrastructure tonight. Residential buildings and cars also came under fire. Port infrastructure has been damaged. This was reported by Deputy Prime Minister Alexei Kuleba. Efforts to eliminate the consequences of the shelling are ongoing. In the Sumy and Kharkiv regions, rescuers and energy workers are dealing with the aftermath of the attacks.
Russia once again demonstrates that it is waging war against the civilian population. Strikes on residential neighborhoods and critical infrastructure are a continuation of deliberate civilian terror. Oleksiy Kuleba, Deputy Prime Minister for the Restoration of Ukraine and Minister for Communities and Territories Development of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, carried out a series of precise strikes in temporarily occupied territories. The SBU reported that concentrations of equipment and personnel used for logistics and the distribution of Russian forces were hit. The nighttime strikes were carried out using FP-2 drones equipped with warheads weighing 105 kilograms each. This ensured the high effectiveness of the operation. The Security Service of Ukraine stated that they continue to neutralize the enemy wherever they are found. The UAV forces of the Ukrainian armed forces struck targets on Russian territory last night. One of the targets was the Lipetsk substation, with a capacity of 500 kilovolts. The strike was confirmed by Robert Brovdy, the commander of the UAV forces. According to him, 5 substations were hit overnight. These actions continued efforts to bring about a blackout in Russia. Meanwhile, Atesh agents set fire to a Russian military truck to disrupt the deployment of troops near Pokrovsk. These were members of the 115th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces, stationed in the Avdiivka area. The partisan movement reported that they were able to delay the deployment of Russian troops. In Russia, the nuclear missile submarine cruiser Khabarovsk was launched, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. The ceremony took place in Severodvinsk, not far from the border with Finland. The submarine cruiser is intended for long-range strategic operations. It is capable of carrying up to 12 Poseidon unmanned nuclear torpedoes. And the Poseidon is designed for covert underwater movement with the goal of destroying critical coastal infrastructure, such as naval bases and ports. No exceptions. Donald Trump refused Viktor Orbán's request to exempt Hungary from American sanctions against Russian oil companies. Washington and Brussels have once again called on Budapest to stop importing Russian energy resources. Kristina Dombrovskaya will tell you more.
The head of the White House confirmed the United States refused to make an exception for Budapest from the sanctions against Russian oil companies, the suppliers of fuel to Hungary. Prime Minister Viktor Orbán made this request to Donald Trump and was turned down.
He asked for an exemption from the sanctions. We did not grant it.
Budapest plans to allow backup fueling stations to operate in emergency situations. Analysts summarize that the Hungarian government is indeed concerned about the possible restriction of Russian oil supplies.
The Hungarian government has published a draft law amending the law on the storage of imported crude oil and petroleum products, which would allow it to designate so-called reserve fueling stations to supply critically important consumers with fuel in the event of a supply emergency. From a Reuters publication.
At the same time, Viktor Orbán is still hoping to persuade Donald Trump in person on November 7th to allow Hungary to continue buying Russian oil. As an argument, the head of the Hungarian government cited his country's heavy dependence on energy supplies via the Russian Druzhba pipeline. Orbán prefers not to recall that it was his government that made Hungary so dependent on Russia.
I have to convince the Americans that, since they can't imagine what it's like for a country to have no access to the sea, we depend on the transport routes through which energy can reach Hungary. Mostly, these are pipelines.
To respond quickly to threats from Russia, the European Union is creating a new system for rapid deployment of troops and equipment across the territories of member states, according to the Center for Countering Disinformation under the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine. This will significantly reduce the time needed to transport military units, armored vehicles, and weapons between countries. At the same time, the key transit hubs will be Poland, Germany, Romania, the Netherlands, and the Baltic countries.
This is not a bureaucratic initiative, but an operational integration of the EU and NATO's defense infrastructure. For the first time, the European Commission is taking on a coordinating role in military logistics, a field that was previously the exclusive domain of national governance. Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation at the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, on Telegram.
European armed forces have stepped up preparations for joint defense amid NATO warnings that Russia could be capable of attacking the territory of bloc member states in the coming years, Reuters reports. Kristina Dombrovska for Freedom TV channel.
Subscribe to The Gaze and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukrainian all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.